Hi, my name is Dave Fitzpatrick, and that's me with the camel. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself before we dive into ancient Egypt. And stay tuned to the Snake Bros Kids YouTube channel to see more of my lessons and videos. My lifelong passion for ancient history began very early in life. As a young boy in the 1960s, my parents gave me the book, The Golden Encyclopedia, Aardvark to Army, and I became fascinated by its contents. In particular, I was mesmerized by the page on archaeology and the arrowheads that were displayed on the lower left-hand corner of the page, as you can see here. Many hours pondering the image left it stuck in my mind. I did not know then that it would play a key role in what lay ahead in my life. During my second grade year at school, we moved from Columbus, Ohio to Pickerington, Ohio, which at that time was almost all country and farmland. A creek cut through our subdivision, and my brother and I explored it regularly. At one point, a spell of warm weather caused the water to dry up, which allowed us to walk directly on the creek bed. Our explorations along the dry creek bed led me to my very first arrowhead. I saw the bottom portion of it sticking out from under a rock and instantly knew what it was. I was in disbelief that I had just found an arrowhead like the one from the book my parents had given me. This is a picture of that first arrowhead that I found, and throughout the years, my fascination persisted, leading me to build a collection that could be considered a small museum. I studied archaeology and geology for many years, and these fields of study still bring me much joy and passion. I now give presentations to middle schoolers in the Columbus, Ohio area about various ancient cultures from around the world. Okay, so now that you know a little bit about me, let's dig into ancient Egypt. Egypt is actually on two continents. If you look at the lower left portion of this graphic, you'll see a square outline showing where Egypt is located. You may notice most of its country is located in the northeast corner of Africa, but a smaller portion of it also exists in Asia. Cairo, the capital, is one of the largest cities in the world with over 22 million people in its metro area. A couple of the most famous ancient Egyptian sites, the pyramids and the Sphinx, are located here. We will explore those places in more detail in this series. Most of the ancient Egyptian sites are actually found along the Nile River, which spans the country and flows from the south to the north. If you look at this map, you'll see where it says Lower Egypt and Upper Egypt. It may seem backwards, but the top half of Egypt is known as Lower Egypt, and the bottom half is known as Upper Egypt. The land sits at a higher elevation at the bottom portion of the country, thus Upper Egypt, and drops in elevation as you move north or toward the upper half, thus the name Lower Egypt. When I was there, I was able to explore sites all along the Nile River and meet many friendly locals along the way. Here are some images of downtown Cairo, as well as some of the Egyptian people that live in smaller towns and villages near the Nile River. You will see people riding camels, donkeys, and horses alongside of cars. Egypt has a deep and fascinating history that extends many thousands of years into the past. There are four primary historical time periods in which human activity in the country is classified: the Paleolithic, which is the oldest, Neolithic, pre-dynastic, and dynastic. As we establish a timeline, note that BC means before Christ was born. For example, since this year is 2025, 11,000 BC would be 13,025 years ago. The Paleolithic time period, from roughly 11,000 to 7,000 BC, shows the earliest sign of human activity in Egypt. Next comes the Neolithic period, which occurred roughly between 7,000 and 5,500 BC. During this time, people began to grow crops, keep animals, and build homes on the banks of the Nile. During the pre-dynastic period, approximately 5,500 BC to 3,000 BC, people began taking special care of those who had died and buried jars and baskets for food and drink in the afterlife. The dynastic period, 3100 BC to 332 BC, is when we see many advancements in Egypt. It began when the first pharaoh, named Menes, unified the country that had been divided into northern and southern sectors. The invention of writing and hieroglyphs, the construction of many of the megalithic sites that still exist, and the preservation of bodies in the form of mummification all occurred during the dynastic period. Egyptian kings and pharaohs ruled the land for nearly 3,000 years until 332 BC, when Alexander the Great conquered Egypt, and for the next 300 years, Greek culture heavily influenced the Egyptian governance structure. By 30 BC, Egypt had fallen under Roman control and the mighty Egypt of antiquity saw its last days. In this series, we will mainly focus on sites from the pre-dynastic and dynastic Egyptians, or those that lived roughly between 2,000 and 7,500 years ago. Here are some examples of the tools utilized by the ancient Egyptians. The arrowheads or points are made of flint. Interestingly, we see similar tools made of the same material, flint and bone, in other areas around the world, including the United States. These are a representation of some of the tools that are believed to be used by Egyptian builders during the dynastic time period, which includes the time of the construction of the pyramids. Because humans have occupied Egypt for tens of thousands of years, we have to keep in mind that the accumulation of artifacts occurred over a very long stretch of time. Much of what remains today is just bits and pieces, with the majority simply lost to weathering. However, set apart from the many fragments are the most magnificent yet puzzling artifacts made of stone. Some are delicate works of engineering, but some are astonishingly huge feats like the pyramids. It all begs the question, how are the Egyptians able to manipulate stone into beautiful carvings and monumental structures? For some perspective on how fast things can change over time, let's look at an example where I grew up. This empty field is where I spent my teen years looking for arrowheads, and it's where I found a large number of the ancient American artifacts in my collection. There was an old house from the 1800s that burned down back near where you see the faint image of a water tower. As a kid, I would find old bottles, pieces of pottery, and even coins where the house was once located. One of the coins was dated 1841. That's old, but not that old when compared to the Egyptian places we'll be exploring. This is what that same field looks like today, a gigantic housing subdivision. If this substantial transformation of the landscape occurred in less than a human lifetime, what might this field look like in another 20 years, 100 years, 500 years? Will people 500 years from now even know that this housing development existed? In fact, the people that live in that subdivision today probably don't know anything about it either. So, what are the implications for things that are thousands of years old? There are still so many puzzling pieces in ancient Egypt's story, some of which may never be found, but the potential for discovery keeps us passionately in pursuit. I hope you enjoyed raising these questions in this introductory video. Stay tuned for more inquiries into Egypt's past. What is the name of the capital city of Egypt?
Cairo!
What is the name of the river that runs through Egypt?
The Nile River. The Nile River.
What material are arrowheads typically made from?
Flint.